This is the second of 4 tutorials on preferences in Audition. I want to talk about audio preferences. Now, to access preferences again, you go to Edit Preferences, or on a Mac, you go to Adobe Audition Preferences. Here we go. In this case, I'm going to start with audio hardware. That's really where you need to start when you're talking about audio. You need to tell Audition what is the hardware source of the audio that you're bringing into Audition if you're going to record audio. So right now it's set to this microphone that I'm using, but I want to change it to a different interface. So I need to say, what is that interface going to be? So I need to go to the default input and have that be microphone Alesis Firewire. This is an Alesis interface that I've got connected. That's a 26 channel interface. So it's giving me this little warning. It can modify blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. Oh, okay, I know that. That's fine. And if I click don't show this alert again, then it won't show up. But for the purpose of the tutorial, I'll leave that unchecked. And now it's saying Alesis. So once I do that, I need to make a few other changes. Alesis is not an MME device class. MME is multimedia extensions. It's an older Microsoft device class. I want to switch over to ASIO, which is a professional device class that works with this Alesis hardware. And I need to change over to the Alesis ASIO setting. ASIO is audio stream input output. And typically when you're working in a Windows system, you have a choice between MME and ASIO. If you're working on a Mac, you're not seeing ASIO and MME. You're seeing core audio, and core audio applies to whether it's professional or consumer level audio products. So you won't see this option if you're on a Mac. On Windows, you see these two guys. So now we've made these changes. We've made the changes to ASIO, and we made the changes to Alesis Firewire. So I've changed the hardware. I've told it, here's the hardware, and here's the device class for that hardware. So once I've done that, we're set. This little button down here will release ASIO driver in the background. That means if you're operating some other software while Audition is operating, then you need to say release the driver so that my other software can work with the ASIO driver as well as Audition working with it. Now let me just change over to what's called the audio channel mapping. Once you've made this change, you need to say, okay, where do I want to send each channel on the device that I've attached to the left or the right input? Now, this is not so critical, really. It does the defaults here. It takes line 1 to the left and line 2 to the right and talks about outputs as well. But this isn't so critical because once you make the change to the hardware, and let's say then want to make a recording, a multi-track recording, you can open up the multi-track recording and say, okay, I want to select my input. When you select your input and there are multiple choices, they'll show up here in the input anyways. You don't really need to worry too much about how you set it there in the settings because you can override it here. So if I wanted, let's say, the mic for channel 1 to come in here, I could select that instead of the current default setting. So that's the basic process for selecting the hardware and then selecting how it's routed. Finally, one more thing in preferences, and that's called control surfaces, which is kind of interesting. This is a new old feature. Even though this is called CS6, it really is the 5th version of Audition. And on Audition 3, they had control surface options in it, but for Audition 4, when Adobe changed this product into a dual platform product, Windows and Mac, they had to take some things out because they had to rewrite that and didn't really have time to rewrite everything for the dual platform release. Well, now that they've had another year to work on it, they've now taken control surfaces and put them back in. So what is a control surface? Well, a control surface is a piece of hardware that looks something like this. This is one of the more popular control surfaces. This is from Mackie. And basically, it's a way to control your audio using a physical means as opposed to using the mouse button or other means that you would have, which is physical as well, but not as easy to control as these control surfaces, which actually has some programming built in as well to create sort of realistic changes in volume and other settings. So people who really are deeply into audio will have a control surface. Now, I imagine that most folks watching this tutorial don't, so I'm not going to make a big thing out of it. I do want to let you know that it is available though, and you can select it from this list. And by the time this product comes out, because I'm working with a beta now, there might be a 4th list on here, a 4th item on here as well. But if you have a control surface, this is where you make the connection. So that's how you do your audio preference updates inside Adobe Audition.